Let's talk about this shit show that is going on with Spotify, right? So Drake has been dragged into, he's been used as one of the major examples in this new Spotify lawsuit where they allege Spotify is botting people's numbers and inflating them, or artists are doing that. That's what they're saying. So let's go over this all lawsuit, and I'm going to give you guys kind of my take on what I think about all this. The lawsuit alleges that there is voluminous information proving that Drake is benefiting from fake streams on Spotify. Spotify is facing a new class action lawsuit accusing the company of turning a blind eye to mass-scale fraudulent streaming, according to Rolling Stone. The filing alleges that Drake has been profiting from billions of fake streams as a result. The lawsuit lists rappers RBX as a plaintiff in the case, both individually and on behalf of other members of general public similarly situated. Every month, under Spotify's watchful eye, billions of fraudulent streams are generated from fake, illegitimate, and or illegal methods, the lawsuit alleges, arguing that the situation causes massive financial harm to legitimate artists, songwriters, producers, and other rights shareholders. The filing explains that Spotify pays out royalties through a stream share model in which all streams are grouped together. Payments are later made out by calculating a percentage to determine each artist's share of those total streams. In turn, the lawsuit argues fake streams would devalue the payout to smaller artists. Despite claiming the use of bots and fake streams is a prominent issue on the platform, the lawsuit only names Drake specifically. It claims Spotify already knows or should know about a substantial amount of information that can prove the Toronto rapper has been profiting from bot accounts. However, he is not listed as a defendant in the case, nor is he accused of any criminal conduct. The plaintiffs are seeking a jury trial to determine compensatory and punitive damages. The filing alleges rights holders have been defrauded out of hundreds of millions of dollars as a result of the alleged actions of Spotify. Spotify fires back at the lawsuit, and this is what Spotify had to say. Spotify has issued an official response to the class action lawsuit, accusing it of turning a blind eye. In a statement obtained by Complex, the company denied benefiting from artificial streaming. They said this: "We cannot comment on pending litigation. However, Spotify in no way benefits from the industry-wide challenge of artificial streaming. We heavily invest in always improving best-in-class systems to combat it and safeguard artists' payouts with strong protections like removing fake streams, withholding royalties, and charging penalties. Our systems are working. In a case from last year, one bad actor was indicted for stealing $10 million from streaming services, only $60,000 of which came from Spotify, proving how effective we are at limiting the impact of artificial streaming on our platform." The last lawsuit names rapper RBX as a plaintiff of the case. This guy is actually Snoop Dogg's cousin, which is kind of interesting because this goes back to what I did on Instagram, where I posted the album sales not being updated, auditing labels. And Snoop Dogg collaborated with that post with me because he's the one that's spoken out, at least for a couple of years, about how labels and streaming services aren't transparent, with what's going on financially with things. So it's interesting that Snoop Dogg's cousin is taking the initiative to do this. As I was just talking about this literally on the last podcast, which didn't happen, at the time. So that's interesting in itself because there is ties there, and I'm sure Snoop Dogg, that's why he shared the post that I made about him, because it just makes sense. It ties in, and I'm sure he's probably aware of this lawsuit eventually, coming out. So they allege that, basically there's more where they allege that they could prove that there were streams happening in Turkey. So people were basically using VPNs. VPNs, if you don't know what that is, that's you can fake an IP address and you can pretend like you're, like how here I'm in Atlanta, right? I can pretend I'm in Los Angeles right now through the internet using a VPN. It's basically hiding your IP address, and you can maneuver throughout different places and experience different sites and different stuff, I wish I was sponsored by a VPN because I would promote it right now. It'd actually be a perfect time to promote it. I was sponsored by a few, but I'm not going to promote them right now. Regardless, yeah, so they were basically saying hey, Drake's streams was coming to Turkey out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden this person was wherever, I don't know, Japan, right? So it's nobody can travel that fast and listen to music. Imagine you listen to a Drake song and the person's in this specific area, and then all of a sudden he's listening to a different Drake song and he's in a different country. It doesn't make any sense, right? And these are like one accounts, like this is a specific account doing this, so that's clearly fraud. For example, if you're listening to music, you're going to be in the same area for the most part, unless you're traveling, which happens sometimes, but you're not going to be traveling in an instant. With one Drake song, you're going to be from Turkey to Japan. That just doesn't make any sense. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about is, because a lot of people, here's the issue with streaming, right? Is, when the numbers come out for streaming, what do people in the comments put, especially on my page? Oh, this is fake. This is bullshit. Album sales were, that's how we really dictate, all this streaming shit is all bullshit. It's not real. Well, back in the days, labels would actually fake album sales. That's the whole point of Nielsen SoundScan. There was a whole company created, a third-party company that had nothing to do with labels, that was created to properly track scans of sales of albums. And it started in 1991 because people would just fake numbers. And that's the issue with Michael Jackson's, first week sales of albums, or, because they said, Sony said, was the album bad or was it off? No, not Off the Wall, because it was after Thriller. So it might have been Bad or Dangerous or one of these albums, right? It might have been Bad, actually. They said Bad sold like 4 million copies in a week. Sony said that. And of course, Sony's going to give those, that's not to say that it's not true, but the label, you can't trust it from the actual label because they're going to inflate their numbers. They're going to make it seem like they're bigger as a label, that they're doing better as a label. They're not going to tell you the exact numbers. If something flops, you think they'll be like, oh, yeah, this did bad. You ever hear companies when people ask, like, oh, did this product do, this product, it fit this niche market and it had its own vision. And, they won't say like, oh, yeah, it was a bad product, it flopped, and that's it. No company will ever flat out say that. They have these words, and so labels the same thing, basically. They'll, oh, this album flopped. No, the single, I think if we were to perform, they'll dodge that. Even artists, when you ask them about certain albums, they'll say, no, I think it was just, it was an album that I made when I was going through, they'll just won't. Most people won't admit that they flopped, or, so why would a company do that? It's just going to ruin their stocks. It's going to ruin everything that goes around. So that was created at the time to make sure that there was no fraudulent activity, because even in album purchases days, there would be labels purchasing albums. There would be labels scanning and fake shipping and saying that this got sold here. There would be companies that would, they would say, oh, we got 50,000 copies. They all sold, and that's it. And they would lie. So when people say, oh, streaming is, yeah, you can fake it, they were faking it on album sales too. They were doing the exact same shit. Payola is a real thing where you pay your way to get to the top. I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast episode. I literally played a clip of Chamillionaire saying that. When he realized, I realized the music industry is just, to get a hit, you have to pay to get there. Now, I'm not saying that every single song that's ever come out that was a number one hit was paid to get there. Yes, it was promoted to a certain extent, but it has to be a good song too for the most part, right? For the most part, most number ones aren't completely garbage. Now, there are some, and you're questioning why it's up there. But as the years go on, you can understand why this song went number one. And years go on, let's just say, In the Club from 50, number one record, makes sense. As the years go on, it's still a song that's played to this day. There's certain records that went number one where you can say it makes sense why that went number one at the time, and it's still a classic to this day. But certain other number ones, they're number one there, and then you never hear of them again because they're just paid number ones. They were pushed to get to a certain level and extent to make certain artists. And that's with every business, man. Every field, there's certain marketing dollars pushed and used to help, make certain artists, certain basketball players, certain, whatever, any celebrity look bigger than they are. And the only way now you can really tell is through concerts. What are the tours looking like? Right now, it's shifted from album sales to tours. People are looking at tours and seeing, because that's the only way you can't fake it. There's no way you can fake tour numbers. I mean, could an artist inflate and say, or Live Nation, which is a promotion company for touring and whatever other promotion company is out there, could they inflate the numbers a little bit? Yeah. I mean, you could lie and be like, but you can't lie and say, if an artist, did a concert and there's 2,000 people, you can tell the difference between 2,000 people and 20,000 people is my point. You know, you can inflate the numbers by maybe 1,000 people, 500 people, because now everybody's going to count and be like, oh, but for the most part, they're 80% accurate of what they are. So that's why I'm seeing a lot more people shift to tours and see what are the tours doing instead of just the album sales. Because the album sales now, one, they've obviously drastically decreased. You know, if you're doing 100,000 first week, that's good. Like, you're doing great. If you do above 100,000, 150, 200, you're doing amazing. That just shows you. Back then in the days, if you did 100,000, you were looked at as a fucking flop. Shit, if you did 300,000, people weren't impressed. Like, if you're doing 500,000, okay, we were talking there. That was like good numbers. Like 100,000 is today. 500,000 back then was great. But nowadays, it's like the sales aren't really there anymore. People are just always, you know, shit talking streams. And I get it, but the industry had to change. So you can't blame the artist and be like, oh, you know, that's why I always hear this for Drake. And it's just funny. Like, oh, like when they're talking about Take Care going diamond, oh, he did it with the fake streaming. I'm like, dude, he did 4 million pure album copies, which means he sold physical copies, 4 million, in a time when CDs weren't even selling. So he sold. If he would have dropped in the year 2000, he would have probably sold 1 million copies first week. Like, Drake can sell albums. You know, that's the beautiful thing about Drake, J. Cole, and Kendrick, is they still had that CD era where it actually showed that they can push CDs too. You know, and then they had the shift. Yeah, I'm saying all this to say this payola, this boosting, this has always been going on, guys. It's not just from streaming era. It's been going on. It's just been hidden a little bit better back then. Now it's a lot harder to hide it because, you know, now you got to, you know, if you're fake streaming, they're going to find out the location of it. It's going to be very hard to hide that. So is Drake guilty of this? Probably. But here's my distinction. And I said this about Kendrick. I said this about Drake. I said this about any artist. Is it Drake paying for those streams? Is it Drake doing it? Because sometimes it would be a company like Spotify potentially doing it for the artist to make them look bigger, or the label doing it for the artist to make them look bigger. You know, we heard Young Thug on the phone talk about, I helped Gunna get a number one. I bought a number one. You can buy you can buy your way to the top. Anybody can. But this is why I love about the 50 Cent quote, right? So I'm always mentioning 50 Cent on this podcast. I'll mention him every episode pretty much. I just know his career. I know every thing that he's done interview-wise. So this is one of the quotes that I love from him, right? And this is why I talk about Jay-Z in the way I talk about Jay-Z and say that in America, he's this huge thing, but around the world. I'm not saying that he's not known around the world, because a lot of people misconstrue what I'm saying. That I'm saying he has an audience around the world. I mean, he's toured around the world, done some pretty good shows, but he's not as big as other artists. Basically, what I'm saying, like Eminem, you know, Kanye's around the world bigger, Beyonce, whatever, you know, whoever you want to throw out there, that's huge around the world, right? I love this quote from 50 regarding America and the world. He said, "You can buy America with marketing dollars, but there's not enough money that you can spend to buy the world." And that's just the reality of it. In America, there is a certain amount of money you can spend to make yourself big here and to look like you're the shit. But there's not enough dollars to go around in marketing for the whole world to influence the whole world to do that. Unless you're a quadrillionaire and like Elon Musk and you can just blow, you know, but at that point you're wasting a lot of money too, because who gives a shit? You're killing it. As long as you're doing it in America good, most people, that's the problem with a lot of Americans, is all they think about is America. They don't think about the world. They don't care. So if you're killing in America, more than likely you're good, you know. So that's a great quote from 50, and it can be utilized in this situation really well, that you can buy America with marketing dollars, buy your way to number one hit, make yourself look way bigger than you are. But you can't fake the concerts, man. That's one thing that I really like, is the concerts will forever be there. There's no faking that. Now, in the future, you can kind of fake it. And I'm going to explain why. Because ticket sales don't always show up on concerts, right? Like, you can't always go to, you know, whoever's toured and see all their ticket sales and stuff. So the smaller artists who don't get their ticket sales reported, what they can do in the future, and this is what I'm talking about, AI being garbage and fucking with a lot of people, is they can create an AI type of concert. Once AI gets good enough, they can post a video of them performing, mashing it with the AI, you know, audience, and make it seem like they're performing in front of 5,000 people on social media and make themselves seem hotter than they are. It's kind of like the fake it till you make it thing. Post those online, pretend like your music's popping, and then when you finally feel like, okay, I have enough buzz, I can do a tour, then do the tour. and do a real tour and make money. So there will be a fake it to you, like there will be some type of manipulation when it comes to tours through AI video to make people think that this artist is bigger. But if they don't time that well and the artist thinks, oh, I'm hot on the internet, and then goes out in the real world and only has 500 people show up, then that's a problem. 500 people, by the way, is amazing. If you're doing 500 people a concert, hey man, you're getting your money regardless. But obviously the bigger artists, they're going to do 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 people, whatever the case may be. But I'm saying that all to say, like, all this shit can be bought and it's fake. So anybody like, oh, my artist never did this, my artist never boosted. I'm pretty sure that they've boosted all the artists in the 2000s. They had a certain type of boost, payola, to get their records up there. From 50 to M to Nelly to Ludacris to Jay-Z they've all had some type of manipulation to help them get to where they're at a certain extent. I'm not saying that all their numbers are fraudulent and they never sold that many. No, because they did worldwide tours. They actually fucking, you can tell when they were selling different products, they were doing numbers. So I'm not saying that it's fake all, but to a certain extent, yeah. I mean, there could be, a couple 50,000 copies here, a couple 70,000. Who knows? I mean, Birdman at one point, I think they called him out for potentially purchasing copies of the Carter 4 to try to get it to sell 1 million copies again. So it's there, man. It's always been there. I see a lot of people say, oh, look at the era nowadays, So I just wanted to say that it's always been there. That's what I want to talk about. And then Spotify got hit with another lawsuit. And this is where they get hit with modern payola, which I was talking about. Let's go over this. Earlier this week, Spotify was hit with a class action lawsuit. The suit alleges that the platform has been all too happy to turn a blind eye to streaming fraud. While Drake is not named as a defendant, he is the only artist named in the lawsuit. Let's see. Let me go down the list. It looks like this isn't the only legal trouble Spotify has these days. The company was hit with yet another class action lawsuit. The lawsuit was brought by New York subscriber Genevieve Caballone and alleges that Spotify has committed modern payola. More specifically, she alleges that the platform deceives its users by selling visibility on its playlists. Spotify exploits that trust by marketing itself as a platform that offers organic music recommendations, the lawsuit alleges, only to secretly sell those recommendations to the highest bidder. That's interesting. Despite knowing that Spotify's representations about personalization were false, Capolongo continues to suffer ongoing harm each time she uses the platform. The lawsuit also alleges that she still cannot discern which songs are recommended for legitimate editorial or personalized reasons and which are promoted due to undisclosed commercial agreements or commercial arrangements. As a result, Capolongo remains deprived of the ability to make informed choices about the music she listens to and pays for, and she continues to be exposed to Spotify's deceptive conduct on a reoccurring basis. That's interesting. I mean, you do have to, and I've said this millions of times, and I say this all the time, even when I do sponsorships, I have to disclose it is a sponsorship, and that's basically what this lawsuit is. You're not disclosing when you're recommending songs that you got paid to recommend that, if they did that. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did. Any way that Spotify can get money, they'll get it. But just disclose it. Say it's a sponsored record. But I don't know, when the sponsored tag is on there, I think people are less likely to listen to the song because it's like, hey, this is paid for, check it out, versus being organic. So of course they're not going to add that sponsored tag. It's going to make it seem like this person's just getting pushed. And yeah, so Spotify fired back at that. And Spotify denied the allegations. They said the allegations in this complaint are nonsense, the company said. Not only do they misrepresent what discovery mode is and how it works, but they are riddled with misunderstandings and inaccuracies. They further explained discovery mode is a feature artists can use to flag priority tracks for algorithmic consideration in limited contexts. Radio, audio play, and certain mixes. It doesn't buy plays. It doesn't affect editorial playlists, and it's clearly disclosed in the app and on our website. The complaint even gets basic facts wrong. Discovery mode isn't used in all algorithmic playlists or even Discover Weekly or DJ as it claims. The company added, it's also wrong to suggest discovery mode only supports major label artists. In fact, it's been widely embraced by independent music community, many of whom have praised the program publicly. Yeah, so of course they're going to fire back on that. But yeah, man, I don't think this is anything surprising. There is, like I said, man, pay to play But to a certain extent, artists are big enough, and once you see them tour, you can kind of tell. Like NBA YoungBoy, you can't say his streams are bawd. Yeah, is there some numbers inflated? Every artist has that, to a certain extent. But NBA YoungBoy is right now about to be, in the top 10 of highest grossing tours. He's clearly doing those numbers, and he has people coming out. So the argument there is very slim. But I can, like I said, who gives a shit at the end of the day, man? If you like the music, I don't give a fuck if it's got 10,000 streams or 100 billion. I've never dictated a song on where it charted, on how many sales it's got, and how many streams or any of this stuff, man. One of my favorite artists ever is Chamillionaire. He had a number one hit Riding, but the second album is my favorite album from him. And that album didn't do like really anything in sales or charts or any of that. So to me, it's never been like, I don't really give a shit, man. To me, it's never been an issue of, now, obviously with 50 being my favorite, I've looked at sales because 50's always mentioned them. But other than that, I could care less about any of that stuff.